at home. As everyone knows, it's not possible to do the real loop due to what's happening with the coronavirus. But Loop arranged, together with Ableton, to do this little weekend of Loop at home. I hope you liked my little improvisation, and that is what I'm going to talk about today. I have my live setup here, and I'm going to try to, in 40 minutes, to go through it and explain what I use, how I use it, and why. During this video, which is streaming live, you can ask me questions in the comments below in this YouTube video. I will not be able to see them now, but 8 o'clock we will try to go through as many questions as we can during 30 minutes. So from now till 8 o'clock, I will do a little go through of this setup. I've been improvising and playing electronic music for a few years, and over the years improvisation have been taking a bigger and bigger part of what I do. And actually not only when I play live, but also when I sit in the studio. So both my studio and my live setup is based around different forms of improvisation. And that is how I designed this setup. So I think a lot of people, when starting to play live with a computer or electronic instruments, get a bit confused because there are so much things that you can use. There are so many products, there are so many softwares, there is also a lot of questions that you can answer yourself, like, shall I work with only a computer? Should I only work with analog gear? Etc. And all these questions are part of your work as an electronic artist. And I think it's really important to try different things and see in what way and when you feel a creative flow when you play in the studio, but also try different setups and different gear when you're on stage. Because it's not always the same in the studio as it is on stage. And everyone are very different. Some people really love the details and focus on small changes, while other people really love to play instruments and, you know, be more dramatic in the way they play. And I think it's important that this is, you can enable this with the actual gear that you use. In my setup, I have a computer where I run Ableton. And in this screen, I think we managed to see the screen now. I have that as a, you could say it's my hub, it's my main thing when I play live. And from here, I can both control samples, software synths and drum racks inside the computer and effects. But I can also sync and trigger my external gear. So I choose to have a setup where I can use the benefits of a computer and the things in the computer, as well as different analog synths and gear. This, for me, also enables me to actually have a specific setup which I could later change when I'm playing. So sometimes I have a Roland 101, or in this case, SH101, and here I have a System 8. But when I play, I also change these ones and use different synths. And that has, or give me a natural change in my performances. So there is a few things, if you want to mix the analog world and the digital world, there are a few things that is good to think about. But I want to really say that again, one or the other is not better. It's really depending on what you want to do and how you feel. If you want to mix analog and digital, you need to have a mixer. You can, of course, run things into the computer and do the mix there, but I really like to have a physical mixer that I can really touch and turn and have a clear effect on what I do. And for me, what I really use when I play is the motion of faders and knobs to put my feeling and my touch to the music and express and feel what's happening. And I really feel that that is happening with a mixer. So for me, a mixer is a very important part of my setup. There is a lot of different mixers. I choose a DJ mixer, and the reason for that is that it's smaller and it's more condensed. Like this Model 1 mixer, which is a nice mixer, has 2 effect sends. It has an EQ sweep, it has a few filters, not too many channels, but actually the things that you need. I forgot to say that you can actually download my live template. I made a little construction kit with a new track together with a live template. And after this session, I will also record a little video separate, which goes more in detail about the template, because I don't have so much time now. Normally when I do the workshops, I like to have a few hours to also talk about improvisation and creativity in general, but now it's going to be focused more clearly on the actual setup and the gear. So if we start with the actual computer and how I designed the digital and the software stuff, if you look in the screen, you can see here that you have on the left side, it starts with a few channel strips. So it goes from channel 1 up to channel 12. And here I have made loads of different loops, sketches, that are, you can say that it's small construction kits, but without any arrangement. So it's just lots of different loops going on that I have created in the studio. And that is, for me, one really central question that you have to ask yourself when you design your live setup. Do you want to do, or like, what do you want to do live, and what do you want to have prepared? Because certain things has to be prepared if you're going to play by yourself, especially if you're more than one, that's another thing. But if you're playing alone, there need to be some structure that you have thought of. It could be patterns in MIDI, or it could be samples, or it could be some kind of plan. And I made these sketches so I can choose on the fly what sketch I want to play. So all these different sketches have different feelings, tempos, harmonies, rhythms, and I can select one that I feel for at that point, but then I can play it in different ways. I can also choose to just play a few sounds, or maybe just one sound, and then add other things. So I see them as small stepping stones or starting points, which I can use to bloom out in different ways. So if you look on the screen, the camera coming from the top and showing my setup here, I have a lot of controllers. I have the K2 controllers from Allen Heath, and they're a little bit bigger, but I really like the feel of the knobs and the faders, and they're quite basic. And when I play, I choose to not have any menus. So I have the setup made so each bottom and each knob and each fader is addressed to one thing in my template. And there is, of course, a lot of controllers that are more, that you can choose to have, you know, a much smaller controller and actually control the same amount of things I do. But I feel that when I play, and I play in the middle of the night or somewhere I play with other people, I don't want to think about what part or what menu I'm in at that point, but actually know that here is that sound and here I have that sound. So here you can see like the little sketch I played. It was a little vague improvisation around my new single, Moonraker. And if you look at the screen again, you can see that the samples, the 12 channels with samples, And if I show you now, you can see that if I start on the left side, it says BK. And here is actually a kick drum. And it will just go on like this forever. So nothing will, there's no arrangement. It's just a loop and going around. And this is one of the reasons why I really love to use Ableton as my software when I play. Because as most of you probably know, the actual loops can be in different length, and I don't need to think about this is like in 6/8 and this is 16 bars and this is 1 bar, and I just record them in the studio and I just put them into my live template and they are there. So I can do a little sketch in the morning and actually play it in the night. Here I had a little kick drum on channel 1. If I go to channel 2, if you look in the computer, there is a little bass. On channel 3, there is a little pad. Then there's a little voice. And then it goes on like this, with different sounds on each channel. There is a hi-hat. Here's a little ride. Here is a little pad that I played yesterday in the studio and throw into the live template. There's a little version of that pad. So these 3 K2s are dedicated purely to these 12 channels. So I have 12 channel strips. And on these ones I have then tried to feel like what do I need to change and what actually have an importance when I'm arranging live on stage. So this in a way could be that like this part of my live set is more an arranging part. I have the possibility to play it in many different ways, but it's still prepared sounds that I've done already. So if we can take one sound. We can take this very simple little pad here on channel 3 in the computer. You can see here the fader obviously is and then I have, if you look from the top, now it's good to look on the top view. If you look at the Allen Heath, in the top here, there is, if I press there, I actually loop it. This specific thing is not really, if you do like this, a little bit confusing. So we're here. If we look at that one, channel 3. Here is my little channel strip, which is the same on all the different channels. Here I have a beat repeater. If we move to channel 11 here instead, which is this moving pad, it makes a bit more sense. Actually, that didn't work. That's amazing. Anyway, when I press that one, it loops and I can decide what length. Now this was triggered to another place. On the next one, little knob here, there is nothing happening until I press here. When I press here, I add a little EQ sweep. This is something I really use a lot because even though it's a pre-made sound, I can have a clear change on what's happening. For example, if we take this channel here, channel 8, which is a drum loop, if I sweep with the EQ, you could hear that I could actually add a feeling, I could add an energy to the sound. And that is what I want to do when I play, and especially when I play with other people, which I really love to do, is that when you can actually play sounds you had already made and change them in a way so you actually play together with other people, it really makes an enormous difference. Here I have on the next 2 knobs, I have 2 cents. So if you look in the computer, I have a lot of different sends. I think I have 8 sends, using them for a few different things. But the first 2 sends, A and B, are addressed here to, if you look at, this is a delay. And the B one, which is addressed on the last bottom here, is a little reverb, or actually a very big reverb. And then I have a simple little mute, if I want to mute the channel. So all these 12 channels are the same. I have the same setup. And then I have added a few different software synthesizers and a few drum racks. And then I have decided, so I have 8 software synths. Here I have a little Rhodes piano, and I have addressed, so I have the select button for each channel on this one. So when I press the K2, I can actually decide which one I'm gonna work with and play with. And to be able to play with them, I use both a MIDI keyboard. Here's a small little keyboard, and I use the push. I use both to play with, and it's really 2 different instruments to play with. So, for example, here, I think I had a little, I need to loop that one. So I play with both, but I use the push mainly to loop my MIDI, which is a very central part in my setup. That these 12 sounds that I talked about first are pre-made sketches that I can use and start from. And then I have the soft synths, the drum racks, and the analog gear, which I don't have anything planned or anything. There is no melodies made, and there is no patterns. I add all that on the fly. So with these 2, I feel that I can go different ways, also when playing with other people. That sometimes I don't use any sketch and play very freestyle. Other times it feels more right to start with the sketches and actually not add much for quite a long time. And at a certain point in the live set, it feels right to start to jam by hand. So for example, if I press here I have a little pad, and like with other channels, I have them as channel strips. Not exactly the same, because here I felt that it was more important to have the volume and then a few parameters in the actual synth. So here I have addressed each knob to different things in the software synthesizer instead. And I decided the parameters that actually have a matter and have some kind of direct change when I play live. So here, for example, if I play this one, that I added on the fly. And the great thing with a push is that I can record the MIDI I play at any time. So I can, here I have the fixed length, which means that I can just press record and it automatically creates a MIDI clip that is in that specific length. So depending on what I'm going to record, I choose a certain length and I press here, like for example 4 bars. So now if I press here, in the screen, it automatically triggers a MIDI clip to record. Can do it here to make it more obvious. Here came a little MIDI clip, and it's 4 bars as I selected. And if I record anything here now, it's going to come a little note. Now it plays that all the time. And then I can choose to play something else. For example, the piano I played before, now I already had a little clip there, because I already recorded that when I jammed. So I take that away, and then I can start to play just freestyle. Here I have a sustain pedal, by the way, which I use a lot. Or I can choose to play on the keyboard. So here I have a lot of different soft synths. If you look in the screen again, you can see it says Rode, which is obviously a Rode, and then I have 8 different synths here. When I play, I can of course change the different presets in these, but the reason why I have so many is to not needing to change so much. I always feel that it's a certain little stress when I start to change things while I'm playing. So I prefer to have a few more and very quickly and direct just press here, okay, I want to play a bass, or I want to play a little string. So that are the soft synths, and then I have a number of drum racks. Sometimes I also bring a little drum machine, not always, and I do a lot of the live drums in my drum racks, where I have made my own little selection of different drums. And I design them in a way so I actually have all hi-hats on one, all snare and claps on one, all special percussions on one, and all kick drums on one, etc. Just to more easily know what I'm doing in each drum kit. But that's just my choice, and I think a lot of people prefer to have it in another way. But for example here, I have a few so here I can, when we are playing here, for example, then I can select a little length here, and if I want to play freestyle, I just do that. And if I don't feel so tight, I can just press quantize, or I leave it loose, or I just quantize a little bit. There are endless options of that. So there I made a little hi-hat. I can also just press in the actual pattern as it goes. So I have these drum racks. The time is running out, so I think I need to go further on and talk about the rest of the stuff. So all this is the computer part. And of course, when you have an external mixer and you have stuff in the computer, you need a sound card. There are endless of sound cards. I use the Universal Audio Apollo sound card, which I like for 2 reasons. It's quite small, it's very sturdy, it's good to travel with, it's not a big rack, it's easy to travel with, and then it also comes with special plugins, which I use for the different channels, and I really like the Universal Audio plugins. Of course, there are many other plugins. That's not the most important thing to choose. It's more a little matter of taste. So that comes in here. And then I have the analog gear. Right now I have a little Moog Minotaur, I have a 101 and a System 8. And to be able to control them from the computer, I have a MIDI interface here. Same there are a lot of MIDI interfaces. Right now I'm using a little motor interface, also for the same reason that it's very sturdy and easy to travel with. It's one extra dimension of the live set you have. You need to be able to carry it. You need it to be able to actually put it together every time you play. It should not break all the time, fit in the boxes. There are a lot of these things that are part of designing your live setup, which could probably do a full video on only that. here is the size of these ones are matching for the basic reason that they fit in a pellet case. This little thing with the wooden thing, I got inspired by Frank, who I play with quite a lot. He have two of them. It's a really nice and easy way to actually pre-connect your stuff and have it easy to set up. So I have the MIDI interface, and the same way as I have mapped specific buttons here to actually play different soft synths, I have done the same with the analog gear. So in this way I can both play all the analog gear with the MIDI keyboard and the push, and I can also play things and playback it on a MIDI loop. So for example here we have a little, I can quickly say what I have. I have actually I made it so I have 4 different synths to play with, and I have named them here if you look in the screen, and there are the one says MIDI here, and I have 101, it says Volca there, now it's a Minotaur, I change a little bit all the time, and then it says external 1 and external 2. And the external 1 and 2 I have different synths, sometimes I have 2, I use different synths, but they're always mapped in the same place, and I always have the MIDI cable, so regardless of what synth I get, I can just connect it and I can play with it. So when I press here, if you look top down, press here, I come to the 101. So if I play here now, if I press here, I think, I come to the Minotaur. And I can play different things. And then I can play freestyle. I select a length, like 4 bars here. I press record. Here I have the external 1 and 2 are here, so here I play the little Roland synth. Or I can play if I pull jam around, I can once again do a little loop. Yeah, and now I get carried away and start to jam. And all of the analog gear comes in on the mixer on different channels. And since a little DD mixer is quite limited, I have also made it possible to merge some channels. So I have some merge boxes here. I can actually have a little go through on this side, which is more of the analog setup and controlling that. Here is the MIDI interface. This is another controller which I'm using mostly in the studio. I know they're gonna come with an update which make it possible to actually work with MIDI, and then I will be able to use it in the live setup. Now it's more, you can change things inside the computer similar to how you use the push. I have the MIDI keyboard, a synthesizer. Here are 2 outboard effects. All the sounds I have In the computer, I use internal effects in the computer, but for the gear outside, since I'm not routing it into the computer and using it on the mixer, I need the external effects. And it's always difficult to choose because there are so many you want to include, and I would love to have 6 or 8 effects, but obviously it's, for me, very often when I play, about finding a few things and decide on them and not use too many different things with that thing. So here I have a delay and a reverb. And on this mixer, as well as many other similar DJ mixers, you have 2 aux send and 2 returns. So I can add here on all the different channels. Right now I have these 3 channels, or these 4 channels for analog gear, and these 2 for the sounds that comes from the computer. As I touched with the push, the looping is a really big part of how I play. I have the sketches, I can loop them, I can use them as starting points, use them as a full, just use small things. I can loop a certain thing from that sketch, then I add things, I play, or I do sequences on the push with MIDI, and I loop there. But the other way I'm using the looping is with an audio looper. And I have both the MIDI looper and the audio looper, as I use them in 2 different ways. And they actually have a very big difference on how I play. When I loop something MIDI, for example here, the little, or it was the Minotaur, I can actually change. So I have looped the actual notes, but I have not looped the actual sound design of that. So I can change all the parameters on the synth. When I loop something MIDI, when I loop something audio, it captures the whole movement in once and can't be changed. So there is a strict limitation on what happens, but what I like with that is that it's always a big amount of chance. You loop something and something is captured, and you don't know exactly what that's gonna be, but of course you have a sense of it because you selected that specific sound, and what happens triggers you to play something else. And as you couldn't really expect what it would sound like, it helps you to actually play something that you didn't expect yourself to play. So if, for example, if we take this little Minotaur here, I have added the looper, so I can send any channel I have to the looper and loop the audio. And that I use with QB here on the mixer. So I have QB, and this button here decide which channel is going to be sent to the looper. So here, if I only want to send the Minotaur, I press here, and what I play here now is coming to the looper. Here I need something was playing, so I press record. And now I take up the looper. So now I capture that, and I can start to change that sound, but only as a full audio loop. Same if I'm playing something here, for example this. And I want to move to another loop, another sketch. I can capture what I'm playing here, because the sound comes out here on these 2. And then I send them over here. Can Just take exit and see the level. So they're coming in here now. I erase the previous one, press record. I put it up. And there is a loop. And then I can go in here while that is playing by itself and start to, if you look in the screen, I can start to feel like, okay, what is the next sketch I want to play? Or is it any specific sounds I want to play? I can also start to, for example here, all the different sounds that, or all here were the MIDI clips. So if I select them, I can erase them, and this loop here goes in sync. And then I select another clip, and that I have also assigned to a little button on my stuff, so I don't need to go into the computer if I don't want to with a mouse, and I can just select here and scroll up and down. See, I think I managed to go through quite a lot. There is one very important feature in Ableton that I use a lot, which also comes to my Circle of Life project and playing with other musicians having analog or digital gear. So Ableton, if you look in the screen here again, in the upper left corner, there is a little button called Link. With Link, you can sync with other devices that have Link. It could be an Ableton, it could be a physical synth that have Link, and it can be a phone or a tablet or something like that. And for that, if you look from the top, I have a little wireless router here that I always bring. So I have a little separate secured wireless network. So everyone I play with, if we're 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people jamming together, all of them connect to that wireless network, go to the link button, press it, and then you're in sync. It made the Circle of Life project much easier and actually possible to navigate with so many different setups. I think we are 20 artists now, and everyone have very different setups. Some use almost only analog gear, other people use only the computer, and some use a mix like I do. And the link button is the savior. And I think, you know, to play by yourself is wonderful in one way, and to improvise and just play around with one sound is, I see that in a way more as a meditation, a very focused journey, and you're just feeling the sounds and the melodies and you play. To play with other people has of course parts of that, but it's more about listening to others and really listening to the pauses and the silence, and start to join another energy, or open up your flow together with another flow. And it is very easy to play together. And I think I get a lot of questions about, like, when you do Circle of Life, how do you decide who's going to do what? And we don't decide anything. It's part of it. It's more about practicing on allowing each other to do what you do, and listen to each other and see what happens. And like a miracle, it's always a very special journey. We play long sets, and of course this journey takes very different angles, and sometimes it's musically amazing, sometimes it's very strange, sometimes it could even be really bad at parts, but all that is a journey that is magical as a full. And to play with each other and improvise is an extremely healing activity. Now is, of course, not the right time to encourage people to play together, but there is a time where we can do that again, and I'm deeply looking forward to that. And I can encourage everyone to do that. Also to, like how I designed this setup, I designed it in a way that I could actually play with anyone, with DJs or other electronic musicians. I have inputs for acoustic gear, and I bring the router. Even here, if you look on the right side, there is a little sound card. This sound card I only use to record what I play. So I do the summing here, and then I connect an iPhone and I record in full quality on that, which makes this also to a little portable recording system. I can actually prepare a few sounds in the studio, very casual, or a lot of sounds. I can go to a place and set this up and tune in with that place or with other people and record something and play. And I think this, to make it this easy, makes it much easier to actually say yes. And for me, improvisation and jamming with people is a lot about saying yes. So I can actually go to a place and someone says, shall we play together? Okay, let's link and put it together and we can play. So do that. The beauty of improvisation is that it's completely impossible to fail. Because improvisation is to just play whatever comes out. And if you have that approach, it's always right. And I think humanity and all of us actually need to acknowledge that what we do is really beautiful, and we are really beautiful as we are. And that we can feel when we dance, when we play, and we do that in a way that is not pushed or forced. I think that was all. I actually have a little note here just to see so I didn't forget anything. Yeah, I think I got it all. The great team of Loop and Ableton asked me to end this with a little jamming again, so I will do that. When I do that, you can see and if there's anything you would like me to answer on the Q&A. So in 10 minutes roughly, I will stop playing and we will have a little Q&A. So just write your questions in the comments below and I will try to answer as many as I can. And if you want to get my template, you can go to the Circle of Live website where you can download it. I plan to do a little video for just the template. I didn't manage to do it yet, but we'll do it straight after this. So there will also be a little more clear explanation of how I have mapped my setup and how you map, because I use these K2s as to control everything. A lot of people use other stuff. There is endless of control surfaces and MIDI controllers that you can use. Yeah, I think the Circle of Live website link should be in the description of this video. I'm not sure, otherwise type in Circle of Live, not life, but live, and you find it. So, I do another little jam. I think I continue where I was. So I think it's time for me to end. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I think it's a bit weird to play in front of a camera. So I excuse myself for not being able to completely devote myself into this, but I hope you enjoyed. So, time to take down the faders and see if you have any question for me. So I think this will go on for maybe 20 or 30 minutes, and then after this there is the Ustream, which are streaming from different clubs in Berlin. So it's probably a full program tonight where you can listen to music. I will turn this, maybe not, maybe there is a question that needs me to do something. So I have a little screen here. The first question sounds like this. How does the signal flow into the looper? Can you pick and choose individual instruments to send to it? Yes, I can. So I use the audio looper because you can say that I use two different ways of looping. It's a MIDI looping, which I use from the push, just pressing record when I'm on a specific channel. Each instrument I have assigned with a MIDI command. So I can choose to play the piano, the Rhodes, this pad or that pad, or this bass, or this drum rack, or this analog synth, or that analog synth. So with one press on a MIDI, I choose which one I control with the MIDI keyboard or the push. And there I can play freehand, and at any time I can press record and it captures the MIDI. So that signal flow is just MIDI notes sending to the different gear, both internally and externally. The signal flow to the looper, here I use the RC505 from Boss, which have 5 slots for loops. Very often I just use one actually, so I would love Boss to do one super simple looper that could be here with just one. That would be enough for me actually. But the signal flow goes from headphone B out. And on a DJ mixer, that's one other little good thing with a DJ mixer is that it's so easy to send and route to the headphones. So I send here, I can for example press Q here on this one, and the sound goes out here into the looper. And then I have the actual sound coming back from the looper on channel 6 here. I think that was that answer. So, what processing do you apply to the master bus? At the moment I don't apply any. Because my summing comes on the Model 1 mixer. So here comes all the sounds from the computer via the UAD sound cards and all the analog gear and the effects, and then it's summed analog in the Model 1. I'm a bit mixed. In one way, I really like to play with effects on the master. I use a lot of analog processing like distortion and compressors also when I play, as I like to kind of play together with effects on the master. But for weight reasons, I can't bring this stuff on the road. The summing, because I have a little bit of summing from the computer. Before I had another 2 Model 1 mixers here doing the summing of all the stuff in the computer, which is another way to do it, and actually not have all these MIDI channels as I have now. There are definitely good parts and bad parts with that. And I tried a bit of summing, so I had some compressors and stuff from Universal Audio on the different channels here from the computer. And yeah, I'm probably going to use that again. I was a little bit afraid that it made the setup a little bit unstable. I had a few glitches and dropouts, so I actually took them away, but I'm not sure that was the problem, so I'm still investigating that. Next question. How do you solve latency when you play with software synths and hardware? Yeah, if you look in my computer screen, you can change this in preferences if you go here to live, and here you actually have the latency. And I play around with, now I just, to be a little bit safe, I put it on 256. Someone told me that it should actually, just to make sure with Apollo sound cards, you should always have it in 512. I'm not sure. I will do more experiments with that. When I like to have it on 128, and like in my setup, that is, let's see what it say. It's 3.47 milliseconds, which with my way of playing, which I'm not a master instrumentalist, is completely fine. Even 6 or 12 milliseconds can be kind of fine to play. But I imagine the latency depends on what gear you use. So maybe you need to try different stuff and have a setup that actually works in the way you need to play. I'm sure there are people that are more focused to really play the instruments in an authentic way, and then probably you need to have even lower latency. Next question. What do you find essential to prepare in advance for a live performance? That is a very good question, and that is also a very individual question, because as I said, to play live is with electronic gear. There is no specific setup that is right or wrong. My setup is a temporary result of a long journey, and it's changing all the time. And I am changing all the time. Everything changes all the time, and probably the way you play will also change over time when you age and you have new realizations or experiences. But right now, you want to do something, and it's important to find your setup in a way that you feel secure and relaxed to be able to play. I like to see it as we create a setup both with the gear we use, but also the setting we set mentally for ourselves and with others when you play, in a way that we feel very comfortable and warm and accepted. And from that place, we can express, and we can even dare to challenge ourselves and do things that we are even afraid of doing, or play things that we never thought we were going to play, because we're coming from a place we really feel secure in. And the same goes for the setup you use. So I would say that, like my setup, I have some things, like I have the sketches partly prepared, which also make it possible for me to include the sound design and expression I have in the studio, because the studio I have is completely different to this setup, and there I can play and improvise in other ways. So to prepare certain samples or loops and sketches make it possible for me to really devote myself in the studio, bring that, take it on stage and share that with other people. And it can also be a place of comfort when I play, because there is a certain sketch that I have prepared, and this sketch helps me to, like, if I'm very nervous, or if I don't really hear the monitor, so there can be many reasons why I feel insecure when I'm gonna play. Then I can start out with a sketch I feel very comfortable with, and ground myself and kind of return back to here through that sketch, and slowly I can move over and be more free in the improvisation. But the improvisation and that free approach, I don't feel that that comes from pushing myself to it, but accepting and allowing that to happen by itself. It's my natural expression that comes out. So for some people, I would say that it's maybe even more important, especially if it's in the beginning of your career as playing music or performing. You could have quite a lot of things prepared. Maybe you are an amazing instrumentalist or vocalist, and your presence and your beauty comes out by singing or playing a violin or a piano. And it's not really important for you to change the loops or the length of the track, but you want to really live put your soul and energy behind each word you sing. Then maybe you should play everything playback and just use your voice. There is no right and there is no wrong in how you do, and there is, thanks to all this endless of gear, which can be a bit overwhelming, but it also helps you to actually choose how you want to play. Yeah, I hope that was an answer on what do you prepare and not prepare. I prepare and I don't prepare. In the end, I like to encourage very improvisational and spontaneous expression, but sometimes that actually comes from some preparation, and sometimes not. Next question. What USB hub are you using to connect so many MIDI controllers on a Mac laptop? Yeah. First of all these MIDI controllers from Alan Heath are actually made in a way so you don't have one USB for each. Now I think it's a bit hard here to see, but if you take the top look, there is only one of these K2s that are connected with a USB into the computer, and that one I have here on a separate USB. The rest of them are all connected with Ethernet cable, so they're just linked. And now I have 5, but you can, in theory, actually have 16. And they are designed in a way so they will never overload the energy consumption from the output. And so in theory, it should work to have 16. Maybe that is to go a bit too far, but who knows. But the actual MIDI the USB hub I have is this one. If you can see it, it's made by Electron, and it's called Overhub, and it works, of course, very well with the Electron stuff. But I think it's the same there. It's metallic. It's very sturdy, easy. It's perfect to travel with. That's have become a big part of my setup. What actually is possible to travel with and what stays intact after a lot of travels. And then the MIDI devices here I have with a MIDI, this MIDI from Mutu. So, next question. How do you personally know when a composition is finished, not just technically, but musically and creatively? That is, in a way, one of the reasons why I love improvisation. Because a composition to me, or when you use an improvisational approach, do not really have a specific length or beginning or an end in that sense, or planned beginning or planned end. It is coming to life as you play. And we always change. Every moment can be slightly different from another moment. You play in different situations. Sometimes you are quite alone with a lot of cameras and play. Other times you play in a very intimate, small place with people very close to you. Other times you play with a distance to people, sometimes outdoor, sometimes in the mountain of Japan, sometimes in a club in Berlin. And in each of these places is clearly affecting me or whoever plays. and to improvise and actually have a lot of things that can be played on that specific time, allow you to be true and share something you feel at that point. So a composition is ending when it's done. And of course that is a matter of taste. And that is also a very strange thing when it comes to improvisation, the thing with taste. Personally, I think that taste exists when I'm not really in the flow, because taste is something we think and we judge. But at some point when you play for a long time, or you listen to someone that play, or you dance, suddenly there is no need to know when it ends or not. It's kind of just happening as it happens, and that is right. And then I think the real beauty of improvisation is expressing itself, and why I think it's so important and healing for people to listen to dance, to play improvised music. I like to compare it with nature. Like you can go to a beautiful designed garden, which have been designed for hundreds of years, and it's magnificent in all ways, and it's perfectly matched colors and flowers and this and that is a very great experience in one way. And then you go out in a national park or a wild forest, and it's not so many flowers, and it's not very designed, and it's quite rough, but it's just perfectly beautiful as it is. And I like to see improvised music in that way. You can never really compare it with a perfect composition by a big composer or a producer in the studio. It will never be that tight. It will never be that extraordinary when you analyze it. And the beauty of that is not designed, is that it encourages you that listen to it to acknowledge that we are that wild and raw and not designed, and to allow that rawness into our life. Okay, that was a part that is normally when we do the longer workshops that we talk more about that, the kind of more deeper approach of improvisation. Back to the questions. We have a few minutes still. Do you use any MIDI foot controllers to free up your hands? Yes, I do. I think that is actually, as you see here, is 2 rows with stuff, and it could actually be a full line of stuff down here as well, with a lot of controllers and things. Let's not go there, and then I need someone to help me to carry all the bags probably. But I have one foot controller. It's a sustain pedal, so nothing very special. But it's a good question. There is a lot of things that is designed for being on the floor, especially for instrumentalists that needs the hands to play their instrument. So that is probably a very smart thing to try out. Next question. To prepare a live set like this, how much time do you work standing up versus sitting down? I haven't really measured that. In the studio, I both stand up and I sit down. And it depends on what I do. Some things is more natural standing up, and some things doesn't really matter. But when a lot of time when I record my music these days, some things I improvise in the studio, but very often I record a sketch, just one little scene in Ableton in my live setup, and I go to a place and I just play freely with these sounds and do a lot of different takes, and then I always stand up and play. My last album, a place called Inkonst, was completely made in that way, recorded inside the club of Inkonst in Malmö. I can highly recommend doing that. It's very liberating to actually take a break from a place where you have made a lot of music. The studio is very often a place that you enjoy. It can also be a place of frustration. And you have normally a lot of mental connections with that place, for good and for bad. To change location and just move your stuff and start playing somewhere else and actually record things somewhere else is very liberating. And I think the way with computers and small live setups can enable that. How do you add all these amazing hiss and fizz effects to your sounds? Do I have hiss and fizz? Yes, I probably have. It's in one way, it's actually a very casual outcome from my hissy and fizzy studio that has a lot of analog gear, and some of it is not working correctly. So I have quite a lot of hiss and fizz. And I actually like that, so I'm not actively trying to get that away. You can also always, like if you download the construction kit and listen to the different sounds I recorded there for you, you can hear this hiss and fizz in all of them, and also humming. And that's my sound on my studio. But of course, I also like to add noisy effects. I probably, maybe if I play something here, maybe it's something like this that this question we're referring to. That is a little bit of a noisy, hissy, fizzy thing. Also, for example, if you take this little loop of the pad, this loop from the pad has a lot of noise, and almost like you can hear this. I think this loop is part of the giveaway that I did. This one I did yesterday in the studio. This one is actually part of this. That's maybe difficult to hear, but this one is played on a few synths in the studio. So it's just played freely, like a long pad session, improvised. And then this one is actually effects. So I just took a certain frequency range of that, run it back out in a lot of different gear, like harmonizers, a lot of culture vulture distortions, and this, now it stopped. Let's see. Here it comes again. So this is just a little fraction of which naturally becomes a little bit hissy fizzy. And then I just took 1 bar loop of this in the computer. I looped it in Ableton because I recorded all this. I just captured 1 bar, and a third time I went out to the hissy fizzy gear, and it became that. So I really use the looping in Ableton a lot. So I play things freely, very similar to how I do live, but in the studio you can more focus on one thing. Like for example, this pad. This pad is 1 little bar loop, but if you look on the actual file, it is 64 bars. And this 64 bars, it's a reason why there are 64 bars, because I've been sitting on the desk with these things and moving EQs, adding things. So this 1 bar becomes like a organic moving little piece. And for me, like just having that one, like here's a whole sketch with 12 sounds, but just starting with that, maybe that is the amazing starting point for another artist I play with that start to play to that. And I never play the other 11 sounds. That was not about hissy fizzy, but I think you got the hissy fizz. Next question. Do you use headphones to monitor and to cue tracks before bringing them in? I have a pair of headphones here. I rarely use them, and normally when I play, I actually just open the channel and play. So that is a bit of risk, but there is And sometimes I use the headphones, but quite rarely, and I do it less and less. The reason for that is that I feel that adding headphones and listening to one little fraction of the whole sound is moving me away from what is, especially when playing with other people. Playing with other people is to feel the other people and yourself and feel what is happening. And when I put the headphones on, it's very often that I actually move myself to a complete different feeling, and I love that feeling. But when I take off the headphones, that's not what's real at that point. So that's why, for example, here, if I have this one, then I can start to feel. Yes, it sounds nice. And then that's why I like to play a little bit on free hand before I start to loop something. Because then I start to get into it and I feel what I want to add sonically and rhythmically. And then when I have that, then I choose to loop with the push, for example. So I imagine that we're starting to come to the end of this. I would love to answer more questions. Hopefully, when it's time to meet again, we will have more workshops in real like this. That's our ambition with Circle of Life, to both have concerts, jams, workshops, sleeping concerts, and really share and feel improvisation in its essence in many different ways. And I think that is also a great thing. Like, I have this setup. This is just an example, and everyone needs to find their way of playing. But to share and to let people know what you do is it's an amazing way to move forward together. So another question. Has your approach to live improvisation changed since Circle of Life began? I would say that it's probably changing all the time. But my feeling for improvisation and the relevance of improvisation have probably just been proved within me, and I feel an enormous yes for it, and I really love to share the importance with that with as many as possible, which I'm very happy and honored that I got the opportunity today to do a little one. But one aspect of improvisation is that it naturally also challenges you, and it challenges a lot of deeper and psychological aspects of yourself, and especially, you know, there is many things like that, and it's so many things that you can actually meet when you improvise and improvise with different people. Some things are too hard to handle, other things are amazing, but the two main things I would say is probably acceptance, and probably acceptance is one of the main things. And it's wonderful to accept. It's wonderful to accept the situation you are in. It's wonderful to accept what you play. It's wonderful to accept everyone you meet. But in my reality, I can't always do it. And it's a practice. And you need to get challenged to be able to do it. And sometimes when I play with other people, I'm not completely in the magical zone, and I can't feel another artist sometimes. And it's a beautiful challenge to actually start to see that comes from you, and let it change. So let's see if we have time for more questions. I think we did 90 minutes now. Someone is writing on the screen for me. I feel very privileged. And now on the screen it says we have some more time. So we do a few more questions. We take this pad was very nice, but every pad has its lifespan, and I think that composition came to an end. We can take, I actually want to share a little sound with you. I promised to do that. This one. See if you can hear it. It's actually about Circle of Life.
So at the same time, encourage people to come from the very start and to take the journey from the beginning. Why is it an all-night-long experience? And what's the intention behind that, and what's the purpose behind that, and also at the same time?
The reason why I played that is that it was my dear friend Nico who said that, and which I'm doing Circle of Life together with. So he's a very big and important part of that project, and the reason also why we are able to do these workshops even. And what he say there is he's kind of raising the question of, yeah, so you got your own question, Nico. Wonderful. I always think about you. So he say that why is it important to have this all-night-long experience, and why is it important for us to encourage people to come from the start? And that is also the nature of improvisation, that it is not happening like this on an instant. It's something that we allow, and sometimes it takes time. And it can be a long journey. And when we share that journey together, we all add with our consciousness to let that happen. And our intention behind Circle of Life, and also why I love to improvise, is that improvisation and live improvisations can inspire people to come in contact with themselves. So that's the intention. So back to the technical stuff. Does Ableton provide the master clock when you are syncing with different artists? Yeah, this is a little bit out of my reach, because I'm not really a technical person. I like technical gear that amazing people design. I'm just amazed when I look at all this, that the amount of people that have put in their passion, time, energy, money to do all this, it's just incredible. I almost want to cry. But I'm not very good at it myself. But like I said before, how we sync in Circle of Life, we do it with link. So you press link, and you have a Wi-Fi, and then you are synced. Very easy. And another beauty with that is that there is no master. I don't know how Link do that with the different clocks in all the different systems, and I'm pretty sure that it must have some kind of effect on the sound quality, but not so much that it's not possible to play with it. Maybe it doesn't have an effect, I don't actually know. But no one is the master. So the link itself is the master. So actually you can, like when you are synced, someone else can come, open their computer, start it, press link, and add sounds and be in complete sync. Everyone can press stop. So no one is playing, and then someone press start again and it's sync. So, and if I started it, I can just close my computer and go, and it's still running, as long as the Wi-Fi network is running. Another question. Do you allow your bass lines to be in stereo, or should it be kept mono for club systems? Yeah. When I play live, it's very often extremely random, and I probably break all important rules. And very often there are probably reverbs and delays and things that makes the sub muddy that you shouldn't do. But this question is very correct in the way that sub should be mono for many reasons. And all the sub synths I have are in mono, but sometimes I add effects and stuff. And sometimes it's could even be nice when you break that rule and you have something that is really wide stereo, or maybe even facing itself, and it sounds really strange, but maybe that affects someone with those frequencies in a way that is beautiful. And then suddenly someone else bring in a very mono fat bass, and the weird stereo bass disappears. And that change can have a beautiful feeling, or can be very true at that time. So yes, there are rules with the bass, and it's wonderful to not care about them if you don't want to. Do you have a B plan if something goes wrong during the jam? I have used a few different B plans, and it do happen sometimes that things doesn't work or don't work. The kind of the worst case scenario when I play myself and something is wrong. I remember I played in Mexico earlier this year, and I think the generator was a bit low on electricity, which made my sound card skip. And after a while, it was not really possible to change that. I'm not 100% sure that was the issue, but something was an issue. And then I always have a couple of USB sticks with my own music, so I can actually do a DJ set. And as I always record my live jams, I have a lot of improvisations recorded on these USB sticks. So I could play something that is not played live, but have, you can say, the closest similarity to what I could do live. So that's the B option. Some organizers will probably not want that, and if you can't play, you don't play. But I try to do my best. How do you EQ and balance different sounds and sketches, especially when playing with different artists? That is a complete mayhem when playing with other artists, as everyone have their own stereo mix. We have a summing mixer where everything comes together. I have an eye on that summing mixer, and I kind of try to control if someone is too low on volume or someone get a bit carried away and play too loud. So I can adjust a little bit, but the EQing and such is up to each artist to do. The sounds that, like my setup, as we said, is divided in the sketches that are kind of just rolling loops with different sounds, but they are made in a way that I like the sound of them. Very often, as I do them very quick, it's later on I need to change the EQ or something. The things I have on the desk, like the sweep and stuff, is not really to fix sounds. It's more to have a clear effect on the specific sound where I can do a change that is really heard or felt. So it's not really, I don't have a big mixing desk, a studio desk where I can adjust small things with each sound. So in a way, I just trust that it's fine as it is. And as I said, with improvisation, I like when it's full of hiss and fizz and failure and sudden effects or happenings. I think that's part of improvisation. So I think maybe we're coming to the last question. How do you make sure all of the musicians stay in key? Yeah, that's also a very good question. We have talked a little bit beforehand about specific keys that are a little bit preferred. The reason for that is that in Circular Live we have a wide range of artists and artists that are amazing in different ways. And that, I feel, is also the beauty with electronic music. There is not one way that is the way to be a musician. It's only not about playing one instrument. It's so much about your feeling and your essence that comes out, and that can be done in so many different ways. And there is a lot of genius artists that don't know any key and don't play in keys, and they just listen and feel, and some just use samples and tune them, not tuning them in a theoretical way, but just by listening. And that approach, I think, is also very liberating and important for people who are maybe schooled in another way, that are extremely used to hear what key people play in, and what is right and what is wrong when it comes to different keys and scales. So often we talk on stage, so we can say like melodic minor in G, for example, or we play a 3-gig C, or but yeah, quite often we just say G or C, and then people have to listen a little bit what kind of minor scale we are. With some people I play more in different scales. Other people's, with other artists I play lesser scales because they don't care about that. And that is also about acknowledge the situation you are in and actually appreciate that specific setting and play in a way that kind of open new doors for you in that specific setting. Yeah, I think that was the last question. I hope you enjoyed it. I know that at 9 o'clock, I think, there will be the Ustream from clubs in Berlin. Tomorrow and on Sunday, Loop at Home continues. I think during the day there is a program and full of challenges and activities for you to do at home and practice and do things. And then there is 2 more workshops, and that looks very promising. I'm looking forward to watch them myself. As I said earlier, I will record a little extra video about my template that I'm giving away for free from the Circle of Life website, to show a little bit how to map and what I have mapped in my setup, so you can map that with what you have. Yep, I think that was all. Thanks for tuning in, and hope you got some inspiration from this. Thank you.